Good
am.
morning.
Good morning. How are you? Welcome to
Sorry,
my.
cut your introduction there.
No, it's okay. Welcome to my new mobile office.
I love it.
My morning routine is back now. I get up and I work out. I take my little one to school, make
Amazing.
sure she's masked up and all that.
Oh my gosh. How old is she?
Teenager, man. She just turned
Oh, okay.
13. She just turned 13. So now
Oh,
I'm paying attention to the boys. I'm seeing what's going on in the playground. I'm that dad now. I'm that
you're that
dad.
dad.
Yeah,
You
good
gotta
morning.
do it.
Good morning. Good morning. Thank you for making some time and
Of
joining
course.
me. Yeah,
Thank you
are
for
you?
having me. I know we've been kind of struggling to find a time that works. It was my fault. I've been sick and just, crazy busy
No,
and
no,
stuff,
it's
but
cool. Life happens, man. Are you a
appreciate.
morning person? Are you a morning person in general?
You know, I used to be, and I'm struggling so hard to get back to being like, on top of my morning schedule. I don't know what it is. I think like the whole quarantine just threw me off, and I'm like struggling to
Yeah.
get up, and I've become like a night owl. I'm like, who am I? So I'm struggling to get back to because I love waking up at like 5:36. It's like so quiet and so peaceful. I love it, but I have not
Yeah. So
waking up early.
do you monitor energy levels on like what is productivity? Is it morning? Is it midday? Is it evening?
Yeah, no, for sure. Personally, because I can't, everyone's different, but I find that early mornings and like I get the midday funk, like around like 2 o'clock, 3, 4 o'clock, I just
Mm.
productivity goes down. I'm just not
Yeah.
at, you know. And then later in the evening, I think when it's like super quiet is
Right,
when I'm
right.
most productive. So
Yeah, I get that
I feel you.
like 6 a.m. to 8 energy boost that rides
Exactly.
until like 1. And then I've now learned how to take power naps.
I do that too. I
Yeah.
love it.
And in the beginning I felt guilty. I'm like, midday, I'm turning
No.
them up. Now I'm like, no, I'm gonna take a
I
little
think it's
nap and
needed.
recharge.
I think it's needed. And I was like, is it an age thing? But I was like, no, I think I'm not gonna blame it on that. No, I love it. And I have no shame. I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna go like schedule in my nap time right now. And I feel a lot better. Like I'm sure you
Yeah.
do too. Right? You
No, no,
feel a lot
100%,
better. So
man. 100%. So I've got
yeah.
so much questions, but let's start with your
Yeah.
transition from 9 to 5, project management, out of school, and spent some time in working in it. I think you said engineering and then into some luxury retail. And then
Right.
at some point you're like, I don't want to do this after 5,
No.
6 years. Can
No.
you share a bit more of that
Yeah, no, you know what? It wasn't like the whole transition was messy, but I think with anyone it is.
what did you
Um,
study? What did you
I
study?
I went to school for business. I was trying to major in accounting because, my parents, right? But I mean, I love school. Don't get me wrong. I love school. Like I was a straight A honor roll student all throughout high school.
Wow, okay,
And
okay.
then, so I'm from Montreal originally. So there, after high school, you have to go to college for 2 years.
Right.
So I was like, hey, I'm gonna go into sciences. I loved, all of my chemistry, biology, physics, like all of that. 1 year
Who are
into,
you? Nobody's ever said any of this to me.
I don't know, I was a dork, right?
Oh my gosh.
But 1 year into the program in college, I was like, this is not for me. And I was actually struggling. And I think, I mean, obviously it's a little bit harder, but it just wasn't for me. So I was like, okay, I don't know what else to do. Let me just go into business. It's kind of a safe bet. So I did business and then I moved here.
Mm,
So I went to York, did the same thing. I was like, okay, business, you can't go wrong with that. But I honestly had no clue what I wanted to do. Like, I was just one of those struggling, in my 20s, trying to figure out what I wanted to do. So I think I just got lucky because I found a really good job. I landed a job after a couple of years of trying different things in project management. So I started off as a project coordinator, and I was like, hey, this is fun. I'm the type of person that I love to do different things, right? I don't want the same
mm.
task day in and day out. And that gave me that, right? So there was constantly challenges and just different things, and each day was different. So that led me there, but there was still that deep sort of feeling that I was meant for more, right? I knew that with like even as a child, I used to like have this vision of myself as like a boss lady, right? I was like this full power
Wow.
suit. I don't know. It was just like one of those things I had in my mind that just kept playing over and over again, but I never really paid any attention to it. I probably saw an image somewhere and was like, "Oh, that's cool. Like I want to be like her one day." But it stuck. It stuck in my mind, and I just kept asking. Like I never settled into that you know, okay, this is good. I have a good job. And I did. I had a good job, good money, working downtown. I had a good future, you know, according to
Mm,
society and parents. Like everything was great. But it was that feeling inside that I wasn't where I was meant to be and I needed to be doing something else. And then, you know, parallel to all of this, I was also going through my own sort of personal experiences and challenges with mental health and just struggling in that sort of area. And so I took up yoga. So that was probably about
mm,
2009, 2010. And then it was just like one thing after another. And I was like, hey, you know, I really enjoy this for myself, you know, as a way to heal and as a way to deal with my own anxiety and depression and all of those things that I was going through. But I loved being able to teach people what I was learning
right.
through the yoga, through everything. And then I, you know, eventually started doing a lot of other things, just exploring for myself personally. So I, you know, I did things like Reiki, you know, I did the level 1, level 2, and I continued just doing things for myself. But through that, I was like, hey, I'm learning so much. I want to teach people. And then I know
Mm,
people just kind of naturally gravitate towards me. They're like, oh, like, what do I do? You know, I'm going through this or that. And that's where I noticed that I really enjoy helping people, right? And I really enjoy helping people kind of navigate through the things that I struggle through.
right,
So,
right, right, right.
you know, I noticed these things, but I still didn't piece it all together. I had no idea what a life coach was, right? I had no idea that I can take all of these things that I enjoy and turn it into a career, right? So like fast forward a few years of just
Okay,
still
don't fast
struggling.
forward yet. Don't
Okay,
fast
I will
forward
fast
yet,
forward.
because I've got like a ton of notes already
Yeah,
that I'm
so
triggering.
basically that's kind of how the transition started, right? Obviously so many ups and downs throughout all
Yeah,
of that to
yeah.
where I am
So
today. But to answer your first question, that's kind of how the transition happened or started to take place.
there's a couple of really interesting things you said, okay,
Yeah,
that I would love to dive down a little bit. One is this
sure.
feeling of you're destined for more, right?
Mm.
When you're looking back at it, can you articulate it any more? Like, what was it? And you know, I come from
Yeah.
a similar feeling where, like, I've shared previously, you know, growing up in Singapore, the
Hmm.
10-year-old version of me, the 11-year-old version of me, I used to have these vivid dreams of being in front of crowds of people,
Yeah.
and I don't know what to do with it because, again, there's no representation. Nobody in my family is a public speaker. Nobody's doing anything more than just sort of living in their own little Indian bubble. So I
Yeah.
used to think, like, where am I seeing these things? It wasn't in the movies. We weren't a big TV family, but I had these thoughts that in my 30s and 40s manifested. Where I still remember standing on stage at DC Fest the very first year, going, "This is the moment." I pictured in my head subconsciously when I was 12,
Yeah.
and here we are. And so I took I take every keynote opportunity anytime I'm in front of somebody very serious,
Mhm.
because there's something inside of me that's manifesting, and a
Yeah.
whole bunch of amazing people show up at the right time to keep me on track.
Absolutely. Yeah.
But I can explain that today. But if somebody's
Hmm.
watching or listening to us and they're in their 20s or early teens going, I think I'm destined for more. How
Yeah.
do we articulate what we're looking at today to them?
That's a really good question. I still don't know if I can put it into words and really explain what that was, but if I was to try, I think it's just intuition. I think it's like we already know it. Like I'm really spiritual, so whether you believe in God or universe or whatever it is, and I wasn't always, and that's another story, but I I I am a deeply spiritual person and I feel like I'm really in tune with myself and what's going on around me. And I think as a child I was already tapped into that, but I just didn't know. But I think if I was to explain it to, you know, the general public, it's just your intuition. I strongly believe that each one of us was put here with purpose, right? So it's up to us to kind of do the work to discover that. Some of us it comes easily, some of us not. We have to go through our own, you know, obstacles and challenges throughout life to discover that. But we already know. I think we just need to learn to listen to that voice within, or to that. It's really intuition, right? And I think we have insight into that, but we're so distracted by everything going on around us that some of us, you know, continue staying distracted that we don't discover our purpose. And then there's people like us that go through our challenges and then we hit rock bottom or whatever it is. And then we go through an awakening or some type of spiritual experience that brings us closer to that because we realize that I was living life according to how society's telling me to live my life, how my parents want me to live my life. And I did all of that, but I realized that I wasn't happy, right? So
Mm.
then I started seeking answers to what is happiness? What does it mean to be happy? And so through that, I was able to kind of discover that, okay, I am meant for more. Because it's not like I knew what purpose was or what, that we all have a calling or, all those things that we hear, all the terms that we hear, but I had that feeling. So that feeling, I
Mm.
describe it as your intuition, right? Because I didn't know. I didn't have words for it. But now that I know what I know, I understand it as, your purpose or your calling or
Yeah.
whatever it is, right?
I love that, man. And
Yeah.
like you set me up so well for my follow-ups.
Oh,
As I'm
amazing.
taking notes. This idea of meant to be happy. I speak a lot about it, and we're
Hmm.
not consciously taught to be happy. We're taught to be engineers and accountants. We're taught to be good son and daughter. We're taught to be good,
Yeah.
nephews and nieces and grandchild. But we're
Yeah.
not taught to be happy. And there's something magical and powerful when you tell yourself,
Hmm.
I'm meant to be happy. And then you get really unhappy because you don't know what the hell that means.
Right.
Right? Like what does
Yeah.
happiness look like and feel like? How do I attain it? And then you go on this really interesting journey of get rid of things that make you unhappy. And that's how I found out what makes me
Yeah.
happy is to explore what makes me unhappy. And if I keep getting rid
Exactly.
of those
Yeah.
things,
Yeah.
eventually I'll get to happiness. Um, Yoga is an interesting topic for me because there's people that pursue it for health, the people that
Hmm.
pursue it for other things. When you started yoga, was it for health? Is it spirituality? Well, what is it about yoga that pulled you in there 10
Well,
years
so
ago?
someone introduced me to it. So it's not like I went seeking for it. I just was introduced to it, but it came at the right time because I was going through a lot of things and I
The
didn't have the
student
strength.
was ready. The student was
Yes, the
ready.
student was ready, exactly. Because I was going through all these things and I just didn't have the tools to work through my anxiety, to work through my depression, to work through like all of these struggles. And so it just kind of
Right.
came to me at the right time. And so I use it as a tool to cope with things, right? It wasn't for health. It was, and again, I didn't know, but looking back, what I learned through yoga, connecting to your mind and your body and learning to really listen, um, it's powerful. It's really powerful.
Mm.
And I know a lot of people use it as, hey, look, I'm flexible. Hey, look, I can stand on my head. Amazing. But what I learned, and I've tried different styles of yoga, and they've really westernized it here, and it's become this whole thing. But traditionally, yoga, like hatha yoga, is a very traditional style of yoga, and that's where you hold the poses for a lot longer. So when it comes to you start feeling pain, or you're like, oh my gosh, like I can't hold this anymore. You start using your breath to really start
Mm.
easing into it. And so that teaches you to connect to your body, right? So in situations where you're feeling anxious or you're stressed, use your breath, right? So breath work is so powerful. Like I still use it to this day. Like anytime I feel anxious or stressed or whatever, it's about reconnecting. So connecting to your body and all of that will go away. But with anything, it takes practice, right? But
That's incredible, man. I
it's,
started on that journey, and the version of yoga that I'm constantly being told about is this like breakthrough meditation.
mm,
You got it, like calm. And I kind of like my nosy head. When it's
mm.
calm and it's quiet, I don't feel good. I feel
And you know what?
anxiety.
That's perfectly fine. And I tell my clients this too, and I even have to remind myself because I don't practice yoga anymore. I find that what you need in the season that you're in right now will come to you, and you'll know what to do for yourself because you know yourself best. So for me, like right now, if I was to go do yoga, I find it like just irrelevant because it's not serving a purpose for me anymore. So I find different things, right? For me, I'm
Mm,
really doing a lot of meditation and a lot of breath work, but I didn't do this prior to like the whole lockdown and everything. I wasn't really doing that, but I find that I need that in this season. And who knows, maybe
right.
in a couple of months I might need something else. Maybe I'll go back to the gym and start working out again, right? So I really urge people to listen to what it is, right? So you're like you said, like you like the noise in your head. So why get rid of it, right? If
Yeah.
it's helping you, if it's benefiting you, do it. So it's really about finding what works for you and not doing what, okay, my friend Susie's doing this, so I should go do it too, right?
Right. Yeah,
No.
yeah, yeah.
What
No.
works for them is not going to work for you. This is where you need to learn to listen to yourself and do what's right for you, right? Like we talked about
Yeah.
happiness. Every person's definition of happiness is going to be different. and only you will get to discover what that is, right?
No, I love that. So let's talk about fast forward a little bit. Um,
Hmm.
Life coaching is such a huge category.
Yeah.
Uh, there's so many folks in there talking about being coaches. I love the
Hmm.
fact that you shared a post with all the certifications that you have, which is important because
Yeah.
people have to know this is not just a thing you picked up one day and go, I'm going to start coaching in my life.
No,
You're putting in the
absolutely.
time to learn how
Yeah.
to impact other people's lives. And you
100%.
also said the tools are important. And
Mm.
I never looked at it like that. I never looked at what are the tools in life that I want. And yoga is a tool,
Right.
meditation is a tool, just like my DJ equipment is a tool or my
Exactly.
camera is a tool, which is
Exactly.
really smart. I never looked at it like that.
Hmm.
And and I've been trying to avoid coaching people. People tend to
Hmm.
reach out because of my business and what I've done.
Yeah.
And I don't like the burden yet. I don't like the
Hmm.
I like the
Hmm.
coaching part, which is like, hey, I get to tell you how I feel about you, but there's an
Yeah,
accountability that comes with it. There's a
for sure.
sharing of burden that comes with it.
For
Were you
sure.
conscious of all that as you moved into this new career? And the last
Uh,
follow-up to that is like, what's the blueprint? Because you went to school, you had a blueprint,
yeah.
teachers and schools and academic and degrees. Life coaching, what's the blueprint for that?
I had no blueprint. I had no idea what I was doing. You know, the funny story is though, because let me preface by saying that when I decided, because I decided to quit without really having an idea what I was going to do next, and I
How was
actually
that?
quit twice.
How
What?
was that? Was it like a moment where you're like, this is it, or was it a series
So,
of events?
so when I was 3 years into working at that company, the management and engineering firm, I was like, okay, I'm gonna do it. By this time I had enough under my belt and I knew that I wanted to do something in health and wellness and all that stuff. And I was like, okay, let me just, I saved up money. So I said, okay, I'm gonna go explore. I'm gonna try to figure out what I want. And then 4 months into that journey, somebody reached out to me and they're like, hey, we need a project coordinator slash like junior PM to come work with us downtown. And I was kind of struggling at that point that I still didn't know what I wanted to do. So I was like, maybe this is the universe telling me to go back to work.
Or testing you not to take the
Or
job?
testing me, right? So I ended up going back, right? And that's the job that I had last downtown, working downtown. And it was so miserable. I actually started getting physically sick from all the stress, and I had
Yeah.
like a nightmare of a boss, and it was just crazy hours. So obviously, that didn't work out. And so that was the second time I quit. And by this time, I think like two months in or like a month and a half in after I quit, again, I still didn't know what I wanted to do. I didn't even know that I wanted to be a life coach, but I got this email in my inbox and it was for a life coaching certification. And I don't remember ever signing up for it, but I was like, okay, let me look into this. This seems interesting. And I didn't know what a life coach was at this point. But I looked it up and I opened up the email, and the course was starting the following weekend. So I was like,
Ah,
okay, why not? So literally, that's what happened. There was no like, okay, I'm gonna be a life coach. I was curious. I was like, let me go figure out like what this is all about. It sounds like it might be the right direction. And so that was what happened, but I did not
wow.
know what to do, how to be a life coach. I didn't know what a life coach was. And it wasn't until I started getting into the industry and started networking that I realized there's so many life coaches. A lot of them, like you said, don't even have certifications. But that's the gray area, right? So
Yeah.
really had to, I struggled a lot trying to figure out things, falling many, many times, failing many, many times, investing in the wrong people, losing thousands of dollars, right? Business coaches. And so I had to struggle my way through it to figure out, how to do it the right
But
way and what I
yeah.
wanted to do. I didn't have a niche. I didn't know who I was trying to coach. I just knew that I wanted to help people that were struggling in life. And so it was just trial and error, really. And then I realized, okay, this is who I want to work with. This is the type of coach I want to be. And I'm still, as you evolve as a person, and that's the thing with a coach or a life coach, is that as you evolve, the way you're coaching, the way you show up, and what you have to give is going
Mm,
to change, right? So
100%. Yeah.
yeah, there was no blueprint. And there still isn't. I'm still kind of like, okay, what am I
Trying
doing?
to figure it out.
Yeah, and I'm back in school now as well, studying psychology because I saw that there's a need. Like a lot of my clients would come to me and they weren't really in therapy, and it's not, an area that I can really help them in, but I wanted to. even though, I had the knowledge, but I don't have the, certification, or I'm not qualified as a therapist to really help them. So, liability issues there. So, I was like, you know what? Like, I really want to help my clients more. I know I can. So I'm back
Mm,
now, and I hope to sort of merge the two, because it's two separate areas, right? Coaching and therapy.
right,
And I really want to
right.
merge the two so I can help my clients even more. So that's
I
kind of
love
where I'm
it,
at right now.
man. So,
Yeah.
so if somebody meets you today, what's your introductory pitch? Now that you've sort of figured out a bit of
It's
what you want to
forever
do,
changing. I
you
swear to
know?
God, it's forever changing. I honestly, like, I work with women only now, because I resonate most with them. But it really, like, and it says in my bio, I just help women become badass, confident people. Like, that's
Which I
really what it's
love, which
about.
I
And
love.
it's so layered, but it's really, that's what I focus a lot on. And there's different issues with everyone, but
Right.
yeah.
And when you are working with women, and trying to break down some of the confidence
Yeah.
issues or challenges, um, one of the things I've been trying to figure out with this whole daily conversation, and thank you for joining me if didn't say it in
Of
the
course.
beginning,
Yeah, no, you
um,
did.
is a lot of this stuff allows me to articulate my own thoughts. I realize
Mhm.
my noise is really useful to me, but it takes me a long time to like articulate what my noise is. And so these morning conversations allows me to pull them out.
Mhm.
And then I went ham for 45 days where there was so much clarity screaming
Mhm.
out of me. I literally took the last couple of weeks off just documenting everything, listening to my podcast again, and just getting a
Amazing.
little more comfortable in how I'm approaching my own life. Um, the confidence is an interesting thing because
Mhm.
it's like money. You
It is.
know, we all want the confidence. We know how it makes us feel when we're more confident. There's no formula to get it.
No.
It's just, and when you have it, it could instantly go because we're constantly told about the things we're not good at. And I love how you're like, listen to yourself.
Mhm.
But so often the first things that we listen to about ourselves is the things that are not good about ourselves.
Yeah.
Don't do this, or you
Yeah.
shouldn't do that, or remember when you screwed out. So can you help me tie the two together? Because I'm kind of in that phase of like, I there's some starter confidence, and then
Mhm.
there's this idea of like fake it to believe it, where you fake your
Yeah.
confidence till it catches up. Um,
Yeah.
how how do we understand confidence, and like how do we start to think about it as a
You
tool?
know, honestly, it's an amazing question, and it's something that, everyone struggles with. Like, we're told, okay, to be confident, do this, this, and this. I don't think it's something that can be taught, but you can teach somebody what they need to do in order to learn what confidence means to them. And what I mean by that is, like, doing a lot of the inner work and really becoming self-aware. So understanding who you are, what are your values, what are your non-negotiables, how does your mind work, right? Really understanding, okay, these are limiting beliefs, these narratives that I have are false. So it takes like years of just really trying to understand yourself. That coupled with self-love. So what does that mean to you, right? So really, you know, getting rid of the negative self-talk, putting yourself down. And women are, so guilty of body shaming themselves, right? And that's something that I used to do too. We look in the mirror, oh, this, that. I stopped doing that. And frankly, I think that's one of the reasons why I stopped going to the gym too. Because I was like, you know what? Like, I realized I was going to the gym to look a certain way, and and obviously health reasons too. And I will go, I'm a pretty active person. I go out for walks and stuff like that. But I realized that in doing so, I was able to kind of alleviate all of that stress and all of that, notion of what I needed to do by learning to love myself and learning that, okay, and the continuous work of like understanding my thoughts and my beliefs and behaviors, and really studying myself. I think that it's what it is. And I think I have the advantage because I'm in this sort of
Space, yeah.
space 24/7. So I definitely do have the advantage of being able to work on it a lot more frequently than most people. But it really comes down to doing the inner work. And as you start to understand yourself, you start to accept yourself. As you start to accept yourself, that confidence grows. Because if you accept yourself,
Mm,
you don't need somebody else to validate you, right? And
yeah.
from that space, the confidence builds. From that space, you feel confident. It's not that, you're dressed a certain way so you feel confident, or you have this job so you feel confident. It's just you accept who you are as a person, where you are right now. And that's all that matters. right?
Right.
And it's like
No,
the,
I love that.
fuck's given kind of thing attitude where you just like, I don't care what people think about me because I know who I am and I love who I am because you worked on yourself to get yourself to this point. So for me, that's how I was able to really build confidence. And now, like, I mean, yeah, I have my moments where I doubt myself, but not as frequently as I used to. Like, I don't have, that voice in my head going, oh my gosh, like, who are you to do this or don't do that or whatever it is, right?
Mm,
So it's really about studying yourself, I think, and really understanding who you are and why you do what you do, right? And so by
yeah.
breaking those habits, by, getting rid of those limiting beliefs, you start accepting and loving yourself. So it really comes down to that, I think, in
You
my
know,
opinion.
one of the things you said on your feed, you can't be lonely if you don't like the person you're alone with, right? Which I thought was extremely powerful, and it's such a
Yeah.
simple slap in the face, right? Um,
Hmm.
but this idea of self-love sometimes gets confused with ego. You're
Yeah.
all about you versus
Yeah.
self-love. How do you find the healthier version of that?
Oh my gosh. I just relate everything back to experience. I think you need to kind of like hit a wall and be like, oh shit, like I need to get out of my, ego mind, and it's really through experiences. Somebody will come along and humble you, or somebody will, what
Mm,
I mean? So you may not be aware that you're stuck in your ego or that you're being a certain way or that you're being selfish in the name of self-love until somebody says something and then you're like, oh shit, I didn't realize I was doing that, or something happens and you're like, oh okay, right? So again, it comes back to being so self-aware that you kind of like, you're always like studying yourself and going, okay, hey, why did I do this, right? Or
yeah,
why am I
yeah, yeah.
behaving this way? Like, what am I trying to achieve through this? um Again, it's not easy. Self-awareness is not something that you wake up and you're like, oh my gosh, like, I'm so self-aware.
Mm,
It takes a lot of work to dig through like years and years of just, stories and things that we do, and a lot of people don't want to, right? They're
right.
afraid of going into that territory of, because there's a lot that's going to come up. So
Yeah,
it's when you're ready, and if you're ready to take that leap of starting to work on yourself, personal development, all of that stuff, these things will start to happen, right? So you'll learn how to go from being all in your ego to, understanding, okay, this, self-love in a healthy way, like this is what it's about.
yeah.
And you learn to humble yourself. You learn that, okay, it's really about loving myself for me, and it doesn't matter who's watching. Like, I don't need people to acknowledge that or to validate that for me. Like, I'm here, I'm doing it for me, right?
I
But a
love
lot of
that. I
us
love that.
do seek validation, right? And
Yeah.
so people don't understand that. Like, I dated someone who was highly extroverted and I'm more introverted. So like for me, alone time, like that's fine. But he constantly needed to be around people, right? But he was also very closed off. And so I couldn't really say anything. If I was to say something like, hey, it would just, totally just go over his head, or he would, take it the wrong way. So again, you need to be, woke or whatever it is, enough to start exploring
Right.
things, exploring the inner
Yeah.
work, exploring yourself, and understanding, okay, well, why do I do that? But if
Yeah.
you're not,
No.
you can't, right? You can't, and you can definitely can't force somebody to start that journey either.
Yeah. Which I love, and that's one of the reasons I think more young folks have to start following you and listening to some of this stuff. We have such a interesting, especially from a South Asian perspective. We have
Yeah,
these pockets of like chapters, right? The first 3 to 5 years is written for us, and then
yeah,
the next like 5 to 13 is also written for us, but in conjunction with society's heaviness. Here's what you're going to become. And then we start to ask questions when we're getting into our late teens and early 20s as we're like let loose into life for the first time and going, oh, wait a second. And the percentage of us where the first two fit nicely into your future, I love you for it. Oh my gosh, you are
yeah,
awesome. Most of us now need to go back and unlearn the first two chapters to
yeah.
start thinking about what we want to do next. Talk to us a little bit about your program. So is it a fixed program? If a young lady watching my content is like, I want to get some help, what is it like? What happens?
within my session.
Yeah, like how do you
Right. So,
what is
I
your
mean,
process
I
like?
get women coming to me for a number of different issues. Like some of them, they know they're in a good place. So I don't just work with them on like discovering their purpose. Like there's different areas that I work with them on, but I really try to understand them because sometimes they come to me with an issue, but I notice that it's something else that they need to work on. So I really try to pay attention to one, the way they speak, right? The way that they're showing up. And so I'm trying to help them see their blind spots, but also study them as a person. Um, because like they'll come to me going, oh, I want to do this and da 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 da, and I realize that there's a whole bunch of different things that's really there that needs to be worked on, and so we'll explore together, right? So again, sorry, your question was
How do you get started? Are you a lifetime life coach, or is it a 3 month program they sign up for?
right. So I do
How do
have
you work
different
with clients?
packages. So with the consultation, I'll ask them what it is that they want to work on. What are your goals? And so based on that, yeah, I do have like a 3 month package that I start off with, but based on the conversation I have, I will customize something, and then I go, hey, like based on what you want to do and your goals and stuff, I feel like this might be ideal. So I really try to customize because it's not like one thing
Right,
fits everybody. So it really depends on what are their goals, what are they willing to invest, obviously financially too. And so I'll try to work with them on what they feel comfortable and what I
right.
feel is going to work for them. So I could try to customize according to their needs.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
in the journey you've been on so far as a life coach, what are some of your like aha moments, your I feel good about doing this moments that makes you feel like I'm on the
Yeah.
right path?
Um, just, hearing the feedback, there was a client that I had, and she came to me with, again, it's crazy because she came to me with a few different things that she wanted to work on. And one of the things, aside from our coaching session, that she was struggling with was trying to conceive, trying to get pregnant. And, we worked through the issues that she wanted to work on. And through that, she was able to kind of, because like when it comes to, conceiving, getting pregnant, there could be other more, um, other issues, underlying issues that might be behind all of that. But long story short, she came to me and she's like, hey, like you won't believe it, but I am pregnant, right? And she's
What?
like, and it's partly because of the work that we did together. She was able to kind of work through certain blocks that she needed to let go of, certain like energetic
Amazing.
blocks, I think it was, that she needed to really let go of in order to allow herself to be in the right place for that to happen. So like for me, that's amazing, right?
Mm,
So it's moments like that I'm like, okay, yeah, like I'm on the right path, right? And of course,
yeah.
like certain days I doubt myself, but I really feel like I'm exactly where I need to be, and this is exactly what I need to be doing. So
I love that, man. I've got a question around a post that you made, but you said something that I want to ask you first. What are your daily routines like, to sort of keep you motivated?
yeah.
Are you get up 5 a.m., meditate, no coffee till 10? Like what are some of your quirky routines
So
that make you
what works for me? So again, going back to what I mentioned earlier about like you got to figure out what works for you in the season that you're in. So
yeah.
I really stay true to that. Because I don't like to, and I used to, when I started off, I used to force myself because, everyone else is doing it at 5 o'clock, waking up, this, that, whatever, all of the things that successful people do. But none of that was working to my advantage. So obviously through trial and error and all these, years of trying to do something that didn't feel right, I learned that I need to really trust what I need in the moment and listen
Mm,
to myself. So right now, I wake up, I light some incense, and I play some music. Um, and then I'll drink a glass of water and I'll get my cup of coffee. So I live right by the lake. So during the summertime, I would just grab my cup of coffee, go by the lake, and there's like this little
wow.
private beach right behind me. So I would literally sit there for 30 minutes to an hour, just kind of like reflecting, thinking, meditating, maybe reading a book, whatever it is. And that has been amazing for me. Right now it's a little chilly, right? So I'll try to go out there, but I can only last about 15 minutes before the wind
Yeah.
kicks in. But I still try to stick to that. And I think like the first hour, like it just allows me to gather my thoughts. Because I hate just getting up out of bed and just kind of rolling with that, because then you're stuck with like the residue of like the thoughts from last night or whatever it is. So you really need to collect your thoughts, ground yourself, and set the tone for the day, right? So
I like that.
because like a lot of us just wake up and we're like, so like what's going on, and rushing already, and you're setting that tone, and so your whole day is going to be like that, right? So really be mindful in the mornings and pick, I guess, the emotion, like, you pick your clothes, pick the state of mind that you want to be in, and get into that, and then start your day. So that's what I like to do. And sometimes I journal, right? I don't do that every morning, but if I feel like, hey, there's a lot on my mind and I just want to get it out, I journal. Sometimes I read, right? So it's every day is a little bit different, but certain things that I do, like just sitting and gathering my thoughts, that's an everyday thing, because I need to know where I'm at, and I need to be in control of
Mm.
how my day is going. But other things like journaling and reading a book or working out, whatever it is, like that's it comes and goes, right? Because I listen to what I need, and if I feel like, okay, I need to do this, I'm gonna do it, right? So
Yeah, no, I
it's
love that.
not a strict schedule. It's really about honoring myself and what I need now. Like if you have children, right? Well, you're gonna listen to them. You're not gonna force them to do something. You're gonna be like, okay, what do
Yes,
you
yes.
need?
No, we don't
What do
listen
you
to
need?
them. We
Yeah.
force them. We don't listen to them. What kind of nonsense is
No,
this?
I don't
Okay.
know. I wouldn't know. I don't
We
have kids
don't,
yet, but
no, I like, don't talk to me this too early in the morning. Go back to your room. Just kidding. No, they change your
right?
life. They take
Yeah.
over. So I'm gonna screw it up, but I'm gonna try to pronounce it. Uh, Reticular activating system. Did I say
Yes,
it right?
yes, yeah.
Reticular activating system, RAC, or RAS, sorry. And I read your post, and I was fascinated by the right side, left
Mhm.
side, the law of attraction. I
All
want
of
us
that.
to end with you dumbing it down for me, because I read it
Okay.
all and I was
So
like, I get it, but
yeah.
how do I use it?
Okay. So basically, to simplify what the RAS does or is, so, and we've all been, we've all experienced this. So like, you buy a car. It's a red car. It's a red, I don't know, Honda. Okay. All of a sudden you start seeing that everywhere you go. But prior to
Yes.
purchasing that car, you hardly ever saw it. Why? Right? So you've trained your mind to focus on that thing, and it's kind of like the horse, with their blinders, so that they can focus. That's how our mind works. So when you focus on one thing, because there's so much information around it, there's so much going on around us. How do we train our mind to pick up what needs to be picked up, and
Mm,
the rest is just garbage, right? So we do that by focusing, right? We focus on, okay, these are my goals, this is what I want to do, this is what I want to achieve. Blinders. And so you train your mind by constantly focusing on it, by looking at it every morning or every night, or constantly reviewing your goals. Then you go, okay, this is what I want to do. So then you train your mind to only focus and only look for that. And some of us be like,
mm.
oh, that's a coincidence. But really, it's just you're training your mind, your subconscious, to just look for that information. Does that make sense? So
Totally, man.
that's kind of how that works, is that, the car thing is an amazing analogy, because we all get that. Like, we all of a sudden we buy this car and we see it everywhere. Prior to that, we hardly ever saw it or noticed it.
Right,
It's been there,
right.
we just didn't notice it, right? So in the same manner, if you want to focus on certain things or you want to achieve certain things, you have to do the work, and you have to review your goals, right? A lot of us, at the beginning of the year, January 1st, what do? Write down a goal.
I'm
How
gonna
many
be
of
in
us
the
actually
gym
go
every
back?
day.
How many of us actually go back and review it? Right?
Yes.
Unless you're an entrepreneur or business owner, that's slightly different, right? But if you're in the 9 to 5 and we have personal goals, we'll write it out. But then we get so distracted by everything else, we forget about the goals we wrote, and then we're like, oh shit, I said I would do this. But that's why I tell people, like, write it out, put it somewhere where you can constantly see it, until like it's ingrained in you and you remember, okay, this is your goal, right? So put it on your mirror, put it in your phone, like put it where you're going to see it constantly, until like you no longer have to remind yourself. So you're putting it into your
Mm.
subconscious. So and people do vision boards, right? Same thing. It's because it's constantly there, and it's reminding you, hey, this is what I want, this is what I want. And then so you're focused, right? You have those blinders on and you're focused.
Yeah. No,
So
I love
that's
that.
really what that is.
I love
Yeah.
that. And what's also amazing is, as we look at the balance of like the yin and yang and everything, if that theory is true, and buying a red car lets me see red cars. If I don't want a blue car and I keep thinking about I don't want a blue car, I'm gonna attract a whole bunch of blue cars. And it works exactly the same way. And I
Yeah.
love that's how we're gonna, end today's session. Listen, I
Yeah.
love your energy. I'm a huge fan. I know this is gonna be useful to so many awesome folks that are trying to figure out how do I even ask for help? And that's one of the things that I
Mhm.
that I that I love and hate about our culture is we have so much amazing
I know.
representation and people that can help, but we're also taught not to ask for help.
Yep.
And
Yep.
I hope more people will reach out and ask for help
Thank you.
from you. I'm a fan, so anything I can do to help, please
Thank
let
you. I
me
appreciate
know.
it.
And I know it's an early call, but I appreciate your time for joining me at 9
Of
a.m.
course.
today.
Thank you so much for having me. Like, I loved our conversation. It just flew right by, but amazing. Thank you so much. I
Cool.
loved it.
Enjoy your day. Thank you.
Yeah,
Okay,
you
get out
too.
there and go for a walk. Get that
I
wind.
will.